Hello, I am the CSO of Dabawala Inc. and I would like to introduce to our network security agenda of our company, which is Dabawala Inc. To talk more about our company, I'd like to tell you that we are a rapid growing and flexible food delivery service company that gives services to over 100 restaurants and 1,000 restaurants and 100 local vendors at a very cheap rate across Winnipeg through our website and applications. All these orders for restaurants and local vendors from our valid consumers and controlled through our application. Our staff is trained to assign these orders to courier delivering the food and also help them with their issues. This company is headquartered in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and it has been founded by Mansi Patel. I would like to tell you more about our management and customers. We have 6 major departments. We have senior management of 3 senior managers, the CEO, CFO, CSO. We have the IT department, HR department, finance department, sales department, customer service department, marketing department. We have 5 major customers, which is Barbarito, Tim Hortons, McDonald's, Sushi Chain, and Auntie Shiro, who is our local vendor. To talk more about the network design and configuration that we have chosen to do, we have routers, PCs, laptops, servers, analog phones, and switches. We're using the 2901 Cisco routers. We're using the SR655 ThinkSystem servers. We're using the Asus ZenBook laptops and 2960 switches Cisco. We are also using Cisco IP phones and Idea Center AIO 730S workstations as computers. Our network segmentation is currently we have a HQ with all the departments and all the offices. We have a HQ switch that is connected to an edge router, which is connected to an ISP router, which is also connected to the consumers. Our logical addressing design consists of our main network, which is then 192.168.0.0/16. We have chosen this and we have divided it into VLANs. We have subnetted it according to its hosts needed, available hosts that are needed by those departments. With the customers, each customer has its own network. So for the Barbarito, we have the 10.10.20/24. For McDonald's, we have the 10.10.10.0/24, and for Tim Hortons, we have the 10.10.10.30.0/24. All of them are getting have their DNS as 8888. To provide end-to-end connectivity, DHCP has been configured on either sides of the design. On the HQ side, here we can see the CSO who got the IP address through DHCP. This is the DHCP address. This is the subnet mask and this is the gateway. We can see I just showed a demonstration of how our CSO can ping the McDonald's customer site, so providing an end-to-end connectivity. The ping was successful. Next, I would like to talk about the application layer protocols. We have the HTTP and the TFTP services, which are enabled in the Dabawala servers in the HQ with their files in it. Talking about the essential assets and associated value of that is given to this of this company, we have subdivided the assets into the first assets till the thing system are our software assets, which is our information. We have given its value accordingly on this in this column. We have our physical assets with their values accordingly. And the 5 major assets that I'm going to talk about in this video are the employee payroll, the Dabbawala website, the Dabbawala database, the Dabbawala server, which is the thing system SR656, and the ASUS ZenBook, which is owned by the executive. So the employee payroll just consists of the employee payroll details. The asset is a type of information. It is owned by the HR manager, and its custodians are the IT services. It is located in the wing D of the HQ, and its asset value is 5,000. Same thing for the website. For the database, it has its own type, it has its own owner and data custodian, and the location given right there, right here, and its value at the end. The first asset I'm going to talk about is the employee payroll. The threat that the employee payroll is aware of is we are aware of that the threat that it might face could be unauthorized change in its records. Describing this would be like the change in values in the payroll could cause an imbalance in the financial books. The likelihood of this threat is it might be possible that it might happen, and the exposure of this threat is very high. The next asset I'm going to talk about is the Dabbawala website. The threat it might face is the denial of service attack. While I'm describing this threat, it could be an anti-corporate activism against the Dabbawala Inc. It is almost certain to happen, and there is a very high threat exposure to this asset. Dabbawala database is also could also be facing threat, and that could be information leakage. This could be customer sensitive information could be used for personal gains. This threat is likely to be possible, and its exposure is very high. The Dabbawala server is also under threat through unauthorized physical access. It could be done by data vandalism or data breach, and it is not very likely to happen. So it's unlikely to happen, but the exposure is high. The next threat, the next asset that would face a threat would be the ASUS ZenBook, which is owned by an executive. It could be accessed by an unauthorized person, and it could be used to steal credentials to gain access to sensitive data. This threat is likely to be happening, and its exposure is very high. So let's get back to the asset number 1. The vulnerability description for this asset is inadequate classification of information, and its severity is really high. So there are no existing safeguarding this asset for now. For Dabbawala website, we have lack of redundancy. It could be vulnerable to lack of redundancy. Its severity is really high, and Dabbawala website too does not have any existing safeguards. For Dabbawala web database, the vulnerability description could be unmotivated employees, and the severity is really high, and it did not have like any existing safeguards. For the server 2, the only safeguard it had was video surveillance, but the severity is really high, and the vulnerability could be lack of access control policies that could cause any harm to it. The Asus ZenBook laptop is only protected by an antivirus system, but the severity is really high, and it is also subject to phishing. The employee payroll exposure rate is 10%, and the annual rate occurrence could be only once, but the risk priority is at 3. The SLA would be 5,000, which is the value of the asset, would multiplied by the exposure percentage, which would be 500, and the ALE, the annual, would be 500 times 1 because the occurrence is 1. The Dabbawala website exposure is 20%, and the occurrence is really high at 26%. The risk priority is at number 1, and the SLA calculation is at 1400, and ALA calculation is at 36,400, which is a really high um, which is a really high number, which is really high number for money. Next, we'll talk about the Dabbawala database. It has a 25% exposure, which is really high, but the rate of occurrence is just 1. This risk priority is really low, it's at 5, but the SLA is very high at 23,750, and the ALA is the same. The server of Dabbawala Inc. exposure is really high at 50%. The rate of annual occurrence is just 1, although the priority is at 3rd, and the cost that is incurred in it is 2,371. The SLE, sorry, and the ALE is 2,371 too. The rate of exposure of the laptop owned by the executives is at 100%, and the occurrence can be at 52%, which is a really high. The priority of this risk is at 2, and the SLE is at 1,100, and the ALE is really high at 57,200. So we are going to talk about how we are going to control this risks and give it a countermeasure and recommend of what to do with the defense of these risks. So for the first asset, the control family we are choosing is physical, technical, and administrative. So with physical will be preventative, with technical will be preventative, with administrative will be preventative and deterrent. The cost that will incur in the physical will be 500, for the technical will be 50, for the deterrent will be 20, which will result into 570. The recommendation for protecting this asset using the defense of depth would be have locks and security implemented to protect the information. The employee record must be also restricted by HR manager, and his passwords must be used, and no ports of access should be open to the HR manager on the HR manager's computer. Sorry. Next, we will talk about the Dabbawala Insight for controlling this one would be, the first will be physical, the second will be technical, and the third will be administrative. For the physical, we'll be using a preventative. For the technical, we'll be using a preventative. And for the administrative, we'll be using a preventative and deterrent. The cost to